schools and really enjoy just sharing about the college admissions and financial aid processes. So I have a lot of slides to share tonight, and then we'll also answer your questions. My colleague Stephanie Wells from MEFA, also a longtime MEFA employee, very experienced in all of this work, is on this webinar helping me, and so she'll be answering questions on the side. So if you have questions and monitoring them and bringing them up for discussion, just type your questions into the question section, and we'll try to get through as much as we can during the webinar tonight. Now, also know that I have, in the handouts section here, I have put a copy of the slides, so you can download those and you'll have them for later. That will help with not having to take as many notes. And tomorrow, then I will also send a recording of this webinar. And actually, that's my cue to record it right now. Oh, it's already recording. Thank you, Stephanie. So we'll send a recording tomorrow, so you'll receive that as well. All right. Anything else? I think we're set to go. Let me also start by saying that these are such difficult times, such challenging times, and I feel for all of you because your students have obviously had a very interesting spring, finishing school, probably junior year, and I just want to acknowledge that we've never seen anything quite like this. And then if they're thinking about the next steps, the college admissions process, and you're thinking about that too, I imagine that it brings a whole level of anxiety and, you know, just not really knowing how it's all going to come together. So when we talk about everything tonight, we'll talk a little bit about how things are different in this time with COVID-19, how colleges are doing things a little differently. But on a positive note, what I would say is that the group of students who are just finished junior year, going into senior year, and all of the other cohorts are all experiencing this together. So they're all in exactly the same boat. And so as college admissions goes, you know, it's a level playing field there. Everyone is in this. Colleges know it's a difficult time. High schools know it's a difficult time. You're all experiencing it. So you're in it together, and it's going to be okay. You know, it really will. It will go along probably as any other year, just a little different. The other last thing I'll tell you is that on a personal level, I have two kids. One is a college, he graduated from college last year. And my daughter is just finished her freshman year at college. So she, of course, had to come home from college in March, finish her classes online. And now we're waiting to hear from her college about what the fall is going to look like. Is she going to go back to college, which happens to be in Pennsylvania, or is she going to be doing college from here, or is it going to be a mix? So I'm also, you know, in a similar boat as you are in, you know, just with all the uncertainty. But her classes this spring, I was really happy to see that the college really stepped up, and her professors and other administrators on campus and fellow students all worked together, and she was able to complete her year. And I know they're working hard to make sure that whatever it looks like in the fall, that that it will be a safe place and good for students, whatever decision they make. So colleges have been very creative and innovative in all that they're trying to do to accommodate students. They want your students to attend. They really want your students on their campuses. So you'll see that, and I'll talk about that as we go along. All right, so also about MEFA, if you don't know us well, we are not-for-profit here in Massachusetts, and we have been around since 1982, and we do so much to help families plan, save, and pay for college. And you will be part of our email curriculum after this. So stay in touch with MEFA all through this process, and we'll continue to give you information, updates, all kinds of tools and resources. All right, so the agenda this evening, we're going to talk a little bit about current trends, and then we're going to talk about your student building their college list, about campus visits, or not visits, but virtual visits. We'll talk about all of that. And then we'll talk about the application process and touch on financial aid near the end. And all throughout, I will be sharing about free resources. So trends. I mentioned COVID-19. So what we're seeing right now is that colleges, a lot of campuses are not allowing students to visit, not allowing students on campus. Some are beginning to open up. So you're going to see a real mix there. So as we go through, we'll talk about what that means as far as your students' exploration and research of these colleges and how they can make a college decision, even if they can't interact with the college in ways that they may have seen their brothers and sisters and older cousins and friends be able to do. But again, colleges are being very creative, so I'll share what some of those ways are. Some other trends in college admissions that have been going on for a while are that students are applying to a large number of colleges. One of the application forms that we'll talk about, the Common App, makes that very easy to do. And we just see that students apply to a number. And that's not necessary, but the more competitive a college search the student is doing, or applying to a lot of competitive colleges, sometimes they want to be in a good position to have some choices, so may apply to more schools. But because of that, because colleges now receive applications from students that they don't quite know, are we a top choice for this student, or did this student just add our name in at the end? So they're not quite sure sometimes when they receive an application for a student how interested the student is, and colleges want to know that the students are interested. So that makes what I have listed here, demonstrated interest, a factor in the admissions process. And so what that means is that students really do need to connect with the colleges they're applying to in a number of ways that we'll talk about, so that the college knows this student is really interested in coming here. They didn't just throw us in at the end because a friend mentioned us. They know about us, they're interested. So we'll talk about ways to do that. I'll also talk about the fact that as much as parents, we want to help our kids be successful, and so we want to help them with this process. And that's normal and natural, and there are plenty of ways we can do that. But let's never forget that the students should really be driving this process. And so in whatever ways you can, make sure that they are involved. And some really good advice I heard once from an admissions person is that think about the skills and attributes and life skills really that you want your student to have when you drop them off at college, say next year. And use this process as a way to help them gain all of those skills, so they'll be ready to be away from you and taking college courses on their own, advocating for themselves, all of those things that they're going to need to do as adults. Have them use this process as a way to gain those skills. Now, the rise of social media, I think, with college admissions has two sides to it. The first is good side, that colleges all post on social media. Students can find out a lot about a college by looking at their social media posts, connecting with students from the college over social media. They can learn a lot. So that's terrific. Just something to be wise about is that although colleges aren't going through students' social media profiles, I have heard of cases where maybe something is looked at once in a while and could be a deciding factor. So just make sure that your students know that their social media accounts should be able to be seen by anyone, you know, employers, college deans, their grandmother, just so that if it's seen, it can be a positive addition to the college admissions process. And lastly, just that cost has become a bigger factor. And it is a huge factor, and it should be a factor. You want to make an affordable college decision. You want your student to make an affordable college decision. So we'll talk about that. So this slide is really just to emphasize that staying organized is critical in this process. So on the MEFA website, we have this application manager. You can use it, you can print it off, and this would allow you to write down the names of the colleges that your student is interested in. They could write down the names and then collect all of that information, like what's the admissions deadline, do they need the SAT, what forms do they require for financial aid, and what are those deadlines, and what are their notes about the college. So they could use this form, or they could create their own spreadsheet, or however they keep track of their information in their phones, whatever, they should stay organized with the process. And this is one way you can help them too, just to collect all those deadlines, collect everything that's needed in one place from doing research online. And that will keep the student organized, because you just don't want to miss deadlines or miss out on doing something that a college expects or needs you to do. So this is the time that your student is probably researching colleges. And although it probably would be the time that maybe they'd also be visiting colleges, what I'd say is, and we can talk about the visits and when they're happening, when they're not, but there's a whole lot that students can do online from their couch. And here are some great websites. So this collegenavigator.gov lists all kinds of information about a college, such as what's the percentage of students that graduate in 4 years. They can find out information about faculty to student ratio in classes, how many students are in different majors. There's financial information where families with this income receive on average this amount of grant aid. Lots and lots of great information. So that would be a great website for students to search for colleges. College Scorecard also gives information about average net price. That's the cost minus financial aid, grant and scholarship aid especially. Talks about what's the average level of debt students graduate with, and what about average salaries of graduates, things like that. So all kinds of good information, and I'd really encourage students to go through all of that. Two more. One is Big Future, which is the College Board's college search. They can search by major, by location, by does your student want to be in a city or in a suburb or out in the country. So they can really do lots of college searches and find out some good information. And also MEFA's own free web portal, which is called MEFA Pathway. And there's a great college search tool in there and a matching tool based on preferences. And students can just go to mefapathway.org and create an account for free, and then go right in and begin using that great tool. So what are some factors that students should consider when they're thinking about colleges? Well, institution size and location I mentioned, although that might be a little bit hard to know. How does a student know if they want to go to a college with 2,000 kids or 8,000 kids or 20,000 kids? They may not know. But it's important. And same with the location piece. So those are questions they can ask other college students that they know. They can ask even adults about, what the difference is between large and small colleges, and see, what kind of feels like them. One question I've heard asked is, does the student like the idea of never knowing everyone at their college, but being able to meet new people all the time? Or would they prefer to go into the dining hall at some point and just feel like they know a lot of people in there and they feel comfortable, it feels homey? So questions like that can sometimes help a student figure out what's right for them. Clearly, the academic fit has to be right. Clearly, they want the colleges they're applying to have the majors they want. If a student wants to be a nurse or an engineer, they need to find engineering programs. They need to find nursing programs and apply to those. And they also will want to look at college. Colleges all have what's called the college profile, which gives a picture of the last incoming class, what GPAs from high school the class had, what SAT scores, just to get a sense. The students want to be in a college where they're going to be challenged, but they want to be with students who are like them, who probably want to study the same amount roughly that they want to study. Are they very studious, or do they want to study, but they also want to do a lot of extracurricular activities? So they want to feel they fit. Some things like campus culture, social climate, are a little bit harder to assess, but that's where they can talk to students who are already students on campus. If they were visiting the college, they could do that in person, but there are ways that they can do that. They can chat, and we'll talk about those ways, but they can connect with students on campus and ask questions about what do students do on the weekends? Do people hang out together, or do people just study all the time? What's the library like? They can ask those questions to get a sense of a culture. All colleges have activities, study abroad programs, career and internship services. I've been to so many colleges, and they all do a really great job with all of that. But as it gets closer to making a decision, students will just want to ask questions about all of those offices and all of those options, because maybe one school has more study abroad programs than others. And if that's important to that student, they want to make sure they understand that. Also, the learning style piece. Do students like small classrooms where they can have a lot of discussion, or are they usually quiet in class and they just take it all in and they go back and they read the textbook and they work, more by themselves? So those learning style things can be important too. And then, of course, I mentioned affordability, very, very important. So this slide makes me a little sad at these times, because there really are very few informal and formal campus visits happening now. Most colleges have suspended on-campus tours. However, most have put together programs for your students, okay? So what students need to do is go to the admissions section of the college websites and find out what is going on. And most colleges now have virtual tours. They also have virtual information sessions. And as I mentioned already, they can set you up with students who can text or chat or have a virtual discussion. So colleges have done a lot this spring. Again, they want your students to know about their college, and they want to talk with you. So they're putting together all kinds of things. I even heard of some colleges have put together, you can take a driving tour. So, and then you can have either on your phone, or I think some even have a radio station that will have the tour running as you drive around campus, and it will tell you what's what on the campus. So again, colleges have been so creative. See what's going on and see if your student can take advantage of everything that is happening. Informal visits usually would be just going to the college maybe for a sporting event, walking around, because college campuses can be very pretty and have ponds and grass, or maybe a theater event. And formal visits are when you really, make an appointment, talk with someone in the admissions office, and go to an information session, do a campus tour. And when I talk to you about demonstrated interest, it's really a good idea for students to connect with these colleges, sign up for these events, even if they're virtual, and all of that shows interest. And this slide also has some caveats because we like to talk about college fairs being another way that students can get to know different colleges. But again, a lot of these in-person events are canceled right now. So we've given you a few websites, nacacnet.org and neacac.org. Those are college fairs that usually come to this area, but I am sure they're going to do something virtually as well. And all these platforms now are getting really easy to use. So pay attention to that. Your high school may have information also about colleges that are doing things virtually. And the key is to have students, meet as many college folks as possible and really ask a lot of questions so that they can begin to differentiate between and among colleges. Now, so really a student at this point should keep a very open mind about researching a whole lot of colleges. And one thing I really talk about that open mind, I would say for both student and parent, one of the best things you can do is keep an open mind. If a student falls in love with a college, and of course that happens all the time, or if you fall in love with a college as a parent, that happens all the time too. What's difficult about that is that when it comes time to making that college decision, you're swayed because you've already put that in your mind as the top choice, your first choice. And then even if the financial aid isn't as good at that college or something else isn't quite right, I've just seen some decisions made maybe that weren't the most well thought out, all because either a student or parent had that top choice college in mind. Now, we're humans. It's natural. We're gonna like some colleges better than others. But the more that the student can keep an open mind and the parent can keep an open mind, I think the better. But at some point in the fall, students will have to start really narrowing down and deciding, okay, I've looked at 10, 15, 20 colleges. I like these, but I'm going to narrow it down and I'm going to apply to 8. I'm just going to say that as a number, which is a decent number. And then on that list of colleges that the student is going to apply to, they should have some of each of these types of colleges. So basically, most of the colleges on the list really should be colleges that are probable for that student, meaning that the student is probably going to be admitted. Because the best thing is that you want the student to have a good fit. If the college wants them, the student likes the college, that's fantastic. And your hope is that senior year, the student has been admitted to a number of colleges and can make a choice between or among them. So really looking at the school's profile, doing all of that research, doing all of those virtual events to come up with a number of colleges that they think, this really feels like me, and they seem to want someone like me with my grades and my interests. So a lot of probables. But then, of course, college admissions is very competitive. There are lots of young people out there wanting to go to a lot of the same schools. So they can also have target schools where their chances for admission are 50-50. Where sure, they have the grades, they have the profile that they could be admitted to that school, but the school is very competitive and doesn't take all of the qualified students because maybe it's a small school. And so they can have some of those target schools on their list too, and put together their best application and cross their fingers and hopefully. And then the third type is they can have some reach schools. And reach schools are those schools that are just extremely competitive, that they take only a fraction of the students who are totally qualified to be students there. And for example, the Ivy League schools are a reach school for everyone. It doesn't matter if you're a valedictorian of your class, you have perfect SAT scores, you have a perfect grade point average, it's still a reach for you because most of the students who are applying to the Ivy League schools look just like that. And those colleges can only take who they can take for their freshman class. So if the student is applying to some very competitive schools like that, then they might want to apply to a few more schools because you just, again, want to make sure the student has all of those choices. But it's fine to have reach, target, and probable, and just make sure that there are going to be some choices there and that some of them are affordable, and we'll get into that. All right, now we'll talk about the timeline. So the regular admissions process, and that's how it always used to be, but things have gotten earlier over the last number of years. But the regular admissions process is that the deadlines for applications are usually in January, and then the student finds out about if they're admitted maybe in March or April, and then they would let the school know in May if they wanted to attend. But most schools now have early processes, and they have early action and early decision. So I'll talk about what those are. Early action just means they have an early deadline that's usually in November, and then the student usually finds out if they're admitted mid to late December. And it's not binding. They still don't have to accept that until May, and they can weigh all of the different options, all of their different admission to the different colleges, find out more information, receive financial aid award offers, all of that. But they just get to know earlier. And more students seem to be applying to at least one school early, and then they just have that to know. And sometimes that's just a nice thing to know before the holiday break. Then there's another process called early decision. And early decision is its own thing. So early decision has an early deadline, which is usually November. But this is a binding agreement. So when the student decides, I'm going to apply to this college early decision, they are saying to the college, if you admit me, I will attend. That's kind of the loose promise they're making with this binding agreement. Now, a couple of things about that. That can be great. Let's say a student really knows, this is my first choice. I know I want to go here. So I want to let them know that early, and I want to commit to them. So that's great if the student is 100% sure of that, doesn't want to know about anything else. And remember, we talked about demonstrated interest and how colleges like to know who's really interested in their school. Well, that sure is a way to tell a college, I have demonstrated interest. I am telling you, I will come if you admit me. So that can all be very good for admission to a college. But there's a huge downside to that. And that is that if the student is admitted, then they have to withdraw applications to all of their schools, and they never get to see or weigh what financial aid offers they could have received from other colleges. And so what that means is that you as a family, before allowing your student to apply early decision, you have to be sure that you can afford that college, because that's a big piece, and you're not going to get to weigh other other offers. Now, near the end of the presentation, I'm going to talk with you about ways that you can get a general sense of an estimate of a financial aid offer. You can also talk to the college about that. So there are ways you can do your research on that, but you need to be sure that you can afford it because you're not going to get to look at other things. So that's the downside of that. Now we'll talk about rolling admissions. Some colleges just open up their admissions process and students can apply anytime throughout, let me say, you know, I'll make it up, but anytime November through April or November through August for that matter. But what I'd say about rolling admission is that it's probably best to do that on the earlier side because with a rolling admissions program, financial aid could run out. So I'd say go on the earlier side for that one. And then there's open admission. So a good example of a college that has open admission is our community colleges. Community colleges, someone graduates from high school, they will be admitted to a community college. So that's called open admission. The only caveat I'll make with that is that it doesn't mean that they are guaranteed admission to any program. There probably are some programs in community colleges that have limited numbers, and so not everyone will be admitted to certain programs. But as far as taking courses being admitted to the community college, that is possible no matter what. So that's a great open admission example. So then that was the timeline. This is how the student will apply. So application requirements are going to vary from college to college, but this is in general everything that could be required. There's usually an application form type, and a big one that I mentioned is the Common App at commonapp.org. Common App opens on August 1st. So students can begin going in there, completing that Common App. And once they do that, they then within Common App can list all of the colleges they're applying to. And eventually when they complete their application, it will go to all of those colleges. So it's a nice process. And it works similarly for the Universal College App and the Coalition for College Access. So those are all application types that then are sent to all of the colleges. So what a student would want to find out is what type of college admission application does the college accept? Many accept Common App, some accept Universal, and some accept Coalition App, but usually accept other types as well. And then there are some colleges that might just have a college website application or even a paper app. I've seen that with community colleges especially. And then these are all the other components that can be included. The form, then a high school transcript, sometimes standardized test scores, letters of recommendation, resume, activity list, a personal essay. Not all colleges have those. Again, community colleges probably will just require the high school transcript and a college website application. But many colleges have all of these things. And then some colleges even have an interview or an audition, but not, or portfolio, but not as many. Smaller number of colleges require an interview. An audition would be for someone in the performing arts probably, or in music, and a portfolio would also be in the arts or some type of design. So students in those categories may find that they need to submit things like that. We also get a lot of questions about academic readiness. So, you know, students will ask, what classes should I be taking in high school? Is it better for me to get a B in an honors class or an A in a college prep class? Things like that. So here's basically what I will say that colleges are looking for. And then I'll also talk about this year specifically. Colleges want to see that students have taken a challenging course load. And what they mean by that is that the biggest thing colleges need to know is that your student will be able to do the work on their campus. And so that's why it's really important. The only way they can really know that is to see that your student took challenging classes and did well in them. So that's what colleges are looking for. What I would say about good grades versus challenging classes is that they want to see that the student challenged themselves, but you don't want your student taking all honors, all AP, and struggling and not doing well in those. That's not worth it. You want students to be challenged, but feel successful and feel like they can do the work and get a decent grade. So there's a balance there. Have them challenge themselves, but make sure that they can do the work and not be overloaded with stress. That's just not going to help anyone. And it's much better for them to feel like they are learning. Colleges like to see improvement over time. They know there's a big difference between a 9th grader and a 12th grader as far as maturity, ability to study, all of that. So they like to see improvement over time. And they do like to see those students who exceed any minimum requirements. For certain programs, they might like to see that the student has taken classes relative to college plans. Have they taken enough sciences if they say they're going to be interested in pre-med, things like that. There is a sliding scale for Mass public colleges and universities that you can look up online. It just talks about the number of years of English, math, history, foreign language, all of that. What was the last thing I was going to say here? Oh, to talk about the current situation. So I know that this spring it was very challenging. Students had to go home. They had to finish their classes at home and online. And some colleges, some high schools are just doing pass-fail. Some have given a choice. That's probably worrisome to some of your students. But what I would say is I've heard from a lot of different admissions folks. They all know that. All of your students are in the same boat. They've all had incredible challenges, and they've had to maybe make a decision. Do they want to grade or pass fail? Or maybe they didn't have the opportunity to make a decision. Maybe everything is just pass fail. Colleges know all of that. And they have said over and over again, they are not going to penalize students for pass fail grades from this spring. Not at all, because they understand all of those challenges. So, hey, they'll have a difficult time, they'll have to really spend a lot of time on each application, and they will do that. But they're not going to be penalizing students for some of the things that happened this spring. So students should not worry. They should just continue to do their best, control what they can control. And another thing that students should not worry about this year is standardized tests. So the number of colleges that are not requiring standardized tests for fall 2021 admission is growing. It's a large number. So students should just look on the college admissions website, see what is required. Are they waiving the standardized test requirement for next year? And they will probably see that a lot are. Some have not, but that may change too, because we know the May and June SAT have been canceled. So we don't know if there are going to be opportunities to take the SAT or the ACT this fall. So most admissions folks that I have spoken with have said, don't worry about it. This is much too stressful. You're not in control of it. If they've taken it, great. And if they haven't, colleges know that it has been almost impossible and maybe impossible altogether. So I guess if I can relieve the stress of that, I am passing that on from many college admissions folks at colleges. Additionally, there's another website, fairtest.org, which provides a list of over 1,000 test optional schools, meaning before COVID-19 ever hit, a lot of schools are still test optional. So colleges are learning that there are other ways that they can assess a student's readiness for college.
Julie, can I interrupt real quick here? It's Stephanie. We have a great question that came in early in the webinar that I thought would be perfect after you talk about test scores.
Great.
So with so many schools going test optional, do you have any intel from folks you've talked to in admissions offices about what other admissions factors may be gaining more weight in the whole process?
Steph, thank you. That is a great question. Yes. So what I've heard is that puts more weight on the high school transcript, and that they will really be, that is a big piece of the admissions process anyway, but they will really be looking very carefully at those transcripts. But again, understanding that there might be pass-fail grades on there because that's what high schools are doing. And they understand that as well, but they will be putting a lot of weight on that high school transcript.
Great, thank you. We have a few more questions, but I'm going to hold those till a little bit later.
Oh, okay, thank you. Good. All right, and now we'll talk about some of the other factors too that are all part of this admissions process. So most of the time, students will be asked to submit an activity list and a resume. And basically, students don't need to have a long list of so many clubs that they were involved in, and although some do. I know students are busy and they're doing it, so that's fine. But what's really the most important is colleges just want to know how are you spending your time when you're not in school and studying? What extracurricular activities are you interested in? And what's the depth of that activity? Were you a member of a certain club or team for a couple of years and then you became a captain, or then you became the leader? So that's important to leadership skills, long-term involvement. But also, sometimes a student will say to me, well, I don't do after-school activities because I have to go home and babysit my little brother and sister. That's fine. I mean, talk about leadership skills. So that's whatever you're doing when you're not in school and studying, you should showcase on that activity list and resume. What kinds of things do you do in your community? How do you help your community? How do you help your family? How do you help your friends? What about a job? Are you working? All of that, all of those pieces round out your application and let the college know the type of person you are, and tell them a little bit about what you're going to be like when you're on their campus too. So that's a great place for you to show more about yourself. And then the essay. So I know this can be a part of the process that gets stressful just because it's so personal, and sometimes students put it off. So what I would say about the essay is this is a great time to begin working on your essay if you haven't already. Maybe some of you started it junior year in an English class or something, but if not, right now is a great time to start it. And that will just give you time then to edit it, change it, let someone else read it, give you thoughts, and go back so you have time to perfect it. So once you go back to school in the fall, or whatever the fall is going to look like, the essay won't be a stress for you anymore. So what should the essay be? The essay really needs to be, you want it to share things about you that a college can't see anywhere else in the application. So, you're going to submit your transcript. They're going to see your grades. So they're going to be able to say, oh, this is a strong student. Oh, this is a student who's good in math. This is a student who likes the sciences. They can tell all that. And then maybe your resume tells about some of the jobs you've had. So have this essay share something else about you, what you care about, how you are in this world, what you want to do in this world, what you want to do in college. And by sharing something about you, that will add to the application. Now, it doesn't have to be, I guess what I've heard from admissions folks is they have read essays about students who have gone to the other side of the world and done amazing community work. And those essays, some of them are wonderful and some of them are just meh. And then they have read essays for people who talk about going to the supermarket or building something in a robotics class or helping their sister with something. And those essays can be wonderful or meh. So it just doesn't matter what you write about as long as it shares something personal about you that allows that admissions person to understand you a little bit better. So again, think about what you want to write about. I'm going to show you the Common App prompts in a minute. You don't want to plagiarize. This is, you want this to be from you so they can read something about you. But you also want it to have no spelling errors, grammatical errors. So you want to be able to give it to someone else to read. And you don't want someone to rewrite it for you. All you want them to say to you is, oh, I like it a lot. That last paragraph was a little confusing, and you want feedback like that so that you can go back and fix it up and edit it. Yeah, so that's what I would say about that. Let me show you the prompts. So the Common App has these essay prompts. So I'll read one or two, but basically you're going to come to the conclusion that I'm going to say, which is that you can write about anything you want. But the first one, some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, please share your story. Or I'll pick one more. Discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself and others. And then there's one at the end that just says, share an essay topic of your choice. So it can really be about anything. One more piece of advice I heard from an admissions friend, and he said, read your essay out loud in the mirror. And when you're reading your essay, are you excited to read it? Does it make you happy to read it? If so, the admissions person is probably going to be excited to read it. That's probably going to come through. But if you read your essay and you're a little bit bored with it and it doesn't excite you, just know that the person reading it might end up feeling that way as well. So try to write about something that you care about and that makes you happy to write about. So then letters of recommendation. So this could be challenging this year too, I imagine. So basically you want to get letters of recommendation from adults, mostly teachers who know you well and can offer helpful perspective on you. So your high school probably has their own guidelines. They might have a process by which you take a form and you ask a teacher. So find out what that process is at your high school. If you don't have a process, then I would say, in general, you probably want to ask 2 of your junior year teachers from core courses, meaning English, math, history, science, foreign language. I do know, though, that junior year might have been a strange one for you. So if a sophomore year teacher knows you better, maybe that's the person you ask. Most important is you want to ask a teacher who knows you well, because they're going to be able to add insight in the recommendation that's going to be helpful for the reader. And sometimes it's helpful when you ask a teacher to write a recommendation for you that you give them a little information. You might say, I'm going to apply to these 3 schools and maybe some more. I think I want to be a theater major, and just let them know those things. And I found your English class, helped me so much. I became a better writer in it last year, something like. The more you can tell the teacher, that will help the teacher write a very personal recommendation for you. So that's what I would suggest there. And then you definitely want to say thank you. And a student shared a little tip with me that she was wondering in the fall if the teacher she had asked had written her essays yet, her recommendations yet. So she wrote to them in the fall, and she said, I just want to thank you in advance for agreeing to write those recommendations for me. I really appreciate it, and I know I am confirming that I will be applying to these colleges. So that was a nice way to both thank and remind some teachers. And then interviews. Now, I mentioned that many colleges won't have interviews, and some of the larger colleges just wouldn't have the capacity to be able to do that. But some colleges will. And there are usually 2 types of interviews. There's informational and evaluative. Now, informational really just means it's just a conversation, and it's really not part of the admissions process. It's not going to be weighed in the admissions decision. So a lot of colleges might they want to share about their college with you, and they want you to be able to ask questions. So they open that up. And I would imagine that there would be a lot of virtual informational interviews happening these days. So if you want information, you want to ask about those type of interviews, talk with the admissions offices at the colleges and get your questions answered, and they'll share about their college. But evaluative means that it will be part of the admissions decision. The evaluator, the person interviewing you will take some notes, and that will go in the file. And evaluative just means that, yeah, that will be part of the decision. So I'd say 2 things you want to do to prepare for an interview, and especially an evaluative interview, but either one. You want to think about yourself, and you want to learn about the school. So they're not going to ask you any crazy questions in an interview, but they might ask you, oh, what was the last book you read for fun? Or what do you and your friends talk about after school? What movies do you like? What classes do you like, and why? They're going to ask you kind of normal questions like that. But if you haven't given thought to some of those questions about yourself ahead of time, it might catch you off guard. So just spend some time thinking about yourself and what you like, what classes you like, what you like to do after school, what's important to you. Think about those things before you go into an interview. And then the other thing you want to do is just know as much as you can about the college and have some real questions, because you just wouldn't want to go to a college and be in an interview and say, I want to be an engineer, and they don't have an engineering program at that college or something like that. So just find out as much as you can and have real questions. And then otherwise, try to relax. The people who are interviewing high school students for admission to their college, it's their job, and they love kids your age. That's what they love to do for a living. That's what they do. They talk to 17-year-olds all the time, and they're comfortable and they enjoy it. So just know that that's what the story is. It's not some big scary thing. All right, so you're going to go through that whole process. You'll have stayed organized, so you'll know what needs to go where for all of the different colleges that you're applying to. And then at some point, there will be an admissions decision that will come to you. It may come in the mail, but many admissions offices now have a portal. And once you apply, they send you information about setting logging into a portal, and they sometimes put decisions out that way as well. So those decisions can be admitted, meaning you are accepted, and they'll tell you what semester, what later date you're accepted for. A decision could be deferred. So it's possible that a student could apply early action to a college, and the college could say, we're just going to bump you to the regular decision pool, and we're not going to give you a response right now. That can sometimes happen. Or you could get denied, and they could just say, unfortunately, you're not accepted. We just had too many applications. And let me just say a few words about that. Nobody wants that, right? That's just a hard thing as a student, as a 17-year-old. It's a hard thing for parents to, apply to something, be denied. But it's just part of this process that schools, there are some colleges that have only 2,000 students. So they're only taking 500 students, for their new class. And they might receive 10,000 applications. I mean, they just can't take even a fraction of the students who could be very qualified to do the work at that school. And colleges are looking for students from varied backgrounds, coming from all over. They don't want to take numerous students from one high school if they are only admitting a certain number of students. They really need to spread that out. And then they want biology majors, and they want students who are going to go into business later in life, and students who can fill the band, So it's tricky business. They need to bring in that class for their school every year, and it just means that all students can't necessarily get into every school they apply to. So try to kind of normalize that for your student so that it doesn't come as a big surprise. And lastly, a wait list. So a student might not be accepted, but may be put on a wait list. And I think we talk about what to do on the wait list, but I'll mention it here. Basically, at that point, the student would have to say, yes, okay, I want to stay on the wait list, or no, I don't. I'm going to accept at a different school. And if they stay on the wait list, they can then keep in touch with that college. Let them know if there are any updates to their application. Did they get new grades? Did they win any more awards? And just keep saying, I'm still interested, I'm still interested. And they can check in with the college about what the wait list means, because sometimes wait lists are very long and there isn't much chance of the student coming off that wait list. But sometimes the student can. Now, in the past, May 1st has been the date where students have to tell a college, yes, I'm going to come to your college. This year, because of all of the messiness and the craziness of the situation that we're in, some colleges postponed that to June 1st. All in all, colleges tried to be a little more lenient with families. I don't know what the situation will be next year, but all I'd say is find out from each college when their deadline deposit date is, so that if the student wants to accept, they make sure they deposit and they'll be all set. So maybe I'll stop here, Stephanie, if there are any admissions questions, and then we'll move into the financing piece.
Yeah, sure. There are a couple. Can you just talk a little bit more about early decision and what circumstances will allow a student to bow out from the early decision if they can't attend that college?
Sure. Yeah, so the big one is that if a family just can't afford to attend that college, then they just can't. You can't. What's the expression? You can't get blood from a stone. So if you can't afford to attend, you can't go. So that would be a reason that you could bow out. But the colleges that offer early decision programs usually offer you many ways, and we're going to talk about some right now in this financing section, to be able to estimate a financial aid offer from that college. So what those colleges would tell you is you should really look into all of that, use the calculators provided to get a sense of what type of a financial aid offer you will receive from that college, so that you have a good knowledge of that before you apply. Now, it's always possible that you could do all of that. It looks like the financial aid offer you're going to be awarded is going to be affordable and it's going to work, and then something could change. And you know, there are things that happen. This year we know many things like that happened. People lost jobs and income became uncertain. And so then if something like that changes, well, then you'd have to say to the college, unfortunately, I have to bow out because this is what I thought I would receive in a financial aid offer, and we didn't even receive anything close to that. So that would be a reason to bow out. But again, I think that you really want to do your research so you have an understanding of what you have a good understanding of what that award would be before your student applies. And I'm going to say one other thing too. So yes, you should be sure that according to the calculators that you do behind the scenes, that it appears that it will be an affordable choice for you. But here's something else to think about. You also want to make sure that you would still want your student to go to that college, and your student would still want to go to that college even if another college gave $20,000 more in scholarship. Because that is a scenario that we see often, that students who apply early decision are sometimes excellent students, you know, very high academically. Colleges think they'll be at the top. They're happy to bring them in early and commit to them early. But if those colleges just offer need-based aid, that's all they can offer, those same students may be able to receive merit aid from other colleges. And so just be sure of that as a family, that not only does this seem like it's an affordable choice, and secondly, are we happy with this choice, even if we think the student could receive much greater scholarship dollars going to another college?
That's great. And I just want to throw in one more quick question, then we can move on to the financial aid, because we do have some questions about that. We have a couple questions about students who are entering for 2020 might be deferring. So how is this going to affect the class that will be entering in 2021? Will it be more competitive because students who deferred are taking up all those spots?
Such a great question. And yeah, and we've been hearing that a lot. So what I have heard, and I've talked to a number of admissions folks about this, the admissions folks told a group very recently on another webinar not to be worrying about that. I mean, what they basically said is, this process is stressful enough. There's absolutely no use worrying about something that you can't control. But another thing they said is that there was a whole lot of talk about deferring. But in actuality, many families and students considered it. But the numbers of those actually, to date, taking advantage of it haven't matched those who were asking questions about it and thinking about it. So we just don't know what those numbers are right now as far as deferments. So again, you know, we just don't know what effect that will have. We may now, you know, as the fall goes on, and that's something to stay in touch with MEFA about, because we will stay connected to colleges and admissions folks, and we'll have a better picture of that part of the process months from now. But you know, it's more about the student putting your best foot forward, doing what you can, and you know, controlling what you can control.
Great, thanks, Julie. Yeah, so we do have a lot of financial aid questions, so let's hop into that. And I think a lot of what you cover will answer some of them.
Oh, that's great. All right, so we're going to try to understand college affordability. And what I'm going to say to you is that MEFA has a wealth of information about financial aid, the financial aid process. So we're just going to touch upon things here. Please know, in the fall especially, beginning at the end of September, we have a whole webinar all about financial aid, applying for financial aid, paying for college, and we continue and take you right through the year with all of the details of the finances. So this is just to give you a head start on all of that.
Julie,
So,
Julie, sorry to interrupt. I also want to let folks know that I'll share in the chat links to the recording of our college financing webinar that is on our website now. So anybody can watch any of those recorded webinars.
oh, perfect. Thank you, Steph. So what is cost of attendance and net price? That's something you want to find out. So these are things you want to find out from the colleges when your student is doing the research. So there's a cost of attendance at every institution, which includes tuition, fees, room and board, books, supplies, transportation. You want to know what that number is, and that could be a large number at some institutions. But then you also want to know the net price. And the net price is the price that you're actually going to pay. So that's whatever that cost of attendance is minus financial aid, scholarship and grant financial aid. And the net price is the amount that you're going to pay. And so that's key. And we're going to show you a calculator in a minute so you can figure out the net price at different institutions, because what you're going to pay is the more important number, or an estimate of what you're going to pay. Also, what you want to know from each college is what financial aid applications are required and what is the deadline for that. And you want to learn a little bit about need-based aid versus merit-based aid and the deadlines for that. And then we can talk about looking for private scholarships too. All right, so every college has on their website something called a net price calculator. If you just go to a college website, in the search bar, you type net price calculator, you will find an online tool, and you can type in information about your finances as a family. And they'll be asking you questions like what you'll be putting on a financial aid application next year, about your income and your assets and how many people in your family. And it may also ask some academic questions about your student. It may ask their GPA or SAT scores, things like that. And when you put that information in there, it's going to produce for you a couple of things. One, an expected family contribution, meaning an amount that they're going to expect you to pay toward college costs. And it's also going to share with you an estimate of a financial aid offer that you could receive from that institution. Now, these are not definite. You will never know exactly what you'll receive from that institution until you receive the financial aid offer next year. So you don't want to make any hard and fast decisions based on these estimates, but they give you really great information. So, for example, what I was able to say to my daughter is she was interested in a few colleges, and I ran these net price calculators. And I said to her about one of the colleges, you know, when I ran the net price calculator for a few of these colleges, you got these financial aid offers that looked pretty good. But when I ran the net price calculator for this other college, they didn't really give you much aid at all. And that's an expensive college. So unless things worked out differently and you got some type of financial aid, that probably wouldn't be affordable for us. So let's just make sure you have other colleges on your list that seem a little more affordable. And those are the type of conversations you could have with your student so that you don't find yourself spring of senior year, again, with your student's heart set on one college, and the aid is just not there, and it's not going to be affordable. So have those conversations now so that that list is reflective of a variety of types of aid. And again, with those net price calculators, if it's asking questions about GPA and SAT scores, then that might mean that there's a merit-based component to the aid that that college will offer. And so that's a good thing to know as well. And I think, let me just see one more thing. Yeah, I'm going to say one more thing about merit and need. So just so you understand, some colleges will award aid based on financial need, based on the information that you'll put on financial aid applications. And others, most colleges have some aid like that, but there are some other colleges that will award aid based on merit. And merit isn't necessarily, you know, that your student is the valedictorian. It just means that your student has high academics or other skills, sports, music, something else that the college wants. And so they consider that student a high ranked applicant, and there may be some merit aid tied to that. So both types of aid can be in a financial aid offer. All right, and these are the applications. There's the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA. That is the financial application that every college needs. It becomes available October 1st, and you can apply for financial aid soon after October 1st, but definitely before any deadlines that might be early in November or something like that. FAFSA.gov is the website, so we'll tell you a lot more about that in our financial aid webinars, but that's the main application, and you want to make sure you file it and file it on time. Some colleges also require this other form called the CSS profile. It's from the College Board. And these are colleges that mainly have a lot of their own institutional scholarship and grant dollars. And for them, the FAFSA doesn't give quite enough information for them to be able to really feel comfortable distributing all of their grant and scholarship dollars. So they also ask for this form, which asks for additional information. That's also available on October 1st. So basically, you just need to find out what forms the college requires, definitely complete the FAFSA, and if any colleges that your student is applying to require the CSS profile, complete that as well. And then some colleges may have an additional college-specific financial aid application. I don't see many of those anymore, but that's something to look for on the website, in the financial aid section of the website, just to make sure. Sometimes there might be a merit-based award that requires something separate. And we love to point out information about these programs. So this makes going to college in Massachusetts very affordable. These are programs called Mass Transfer and Commonwealth Commitment. The website is there, mass.edu/mass transfer. And these programs allow a student to begin at a community college and then transfer to a 4-year college or university. And there are all kinds of benefits to doing that. In fact, in some of these programs, there's automatic admission, there is a tuition reduction and a tuition freeze, and guaranteed credit transfer. So they really have done a very good job to align the community colleges and the 4-year colleges in the state. And it can cut costs significantly. So go to Mass Transfer, check out those tools. And also I'll say that on our MEFApathway.org that I shared at the beginning when I was talking about searching for colleges, we have some great tools in MEFA Pathway that also show how much money you can save by going through one of these mass transfer programs. And then another one is just called Tuition Break. And this is through the New England Board of Higher Education, and we've given you the website there. And these are programs that are out of state in other colleges in New England that have programs that we don't have here in Massachusetts, so that if you go out of state, let's say you go to University of Connecticut because they have a program that UMass doesn't have, then you can pay UMass prices, but go to the University of Connecticut. So check out that website for all of the programs that qualify under that. And this is just a timeline, a calendar. So here we are in that research college time. You can't be visiting colleges, but there's a ton you can do online. Connect with colleges and find out what you can do and how your students can begin connecting with them. And again, students can begin writing that essay and asking teachers for those letters of recommendations. Again, let's not stress about SAT, ACT. This is an unusual year. But when fall rolls around, then make sure you attend MEFA's College Financing Seminar, and then students can begin completing those admissions applications and financial aid applications. And following up with that in the winter, continuing to submit admissions, financial aid applications, and applying for private scholarships. Let me talk about that because I didn't really talk about that too much. Following up with colleges with mid-year grade reports and continuing on with MEFA, we have a program in the spring called After the College Acceptance, where we also, in the fall, we'll take you through the financial aid applications. In the spring, we'll take you through comparing financial aid offers from the different colleges, and then figuring out how to pay your college bill through savings, payment plans, loans, all of that. So we are here for you every step of the way. Oh, and here's that MEFA Pathway tool that I mentioned, mefapathway.org. Great tool, and if you have younger students, they can just go in, create an account, and they can explore careers, take skill and interest assessments, research colleges. There's lots of financial information in there. Really great free tool. So you're going to be signed up for our emails. You're in good hands there. Continue to sign up for MEFA webinars that we hold. We hold a variety of them, and we're also really creating shorter content too. So just keep in touch, and we will try to keep you up to date on all of this. And wish you so much luck in researching colleges and starting this college list. And here are the ways you can connect with us on social media as well. So, oh, I didn't talk about researching outside scholarships. So let me do that, and then we'll take questions. So, you know, the main way you're going to receive financial aid is to apply using the FAFSA and maybe the profile form that I mentioned. And you're going to submit those in the fall, and the colleges will receive those. And that's where students receive the bulk of financial aid. However, there are outside scholarship programs that students can apply to, everything from, you know, the Coca-Cola Foundation to a small community organization in your town that might give out a couple of scholarships. So students can always research scholarships online or using some of those tools I mentioned, MEFA Pathway, that Big Future one that was on that slide as well, and type in information about themselves and get a list of scholarships and see if they want to apply to some of those. So that's always a useful activity. Even if they just find one or two, that can be $500 here, $800 there, all can be very, very helpful. And then again, looking closer to home and paying attention to scholarships that your high school might offer, scholarships that parents' employers might offer. The story I always tell is that our dentist always had a little stand-up card right on her desk that said that she gives 2 scholarships to good community servants each year. And, you know, I eyed that one for years and remember thinking I'm going to have my kids apply to those. So keep your eyes open for any kinds of outside scholarships like that. I want to take all of your questions, but before I do, I'll just also add that, you know, we just want as many families as possible to know that we have all this free information and guidance and these webinars. So if this was useful and you want to leave a Google review for us, please do, and you can just tell other families to that they have a free resource. We'd love to share. So I didn't want to forget to say that. But yes, Steph, I'm ready for questions.
That's great. Just talking about scholarships, any recommendations of good websites to search for scholarships?
Yeah, so definitely MEFApathway.org and definitely bigfuture.org that I mentioned. And I have a new one that I really like. It's called Going Merry. I think if you Google it, I'll see if I can get the exact, if it's Going Merry I'll find it. But that's
I'll put a link.
Okay, yep. So Going Merry, it's a funny name, but it's a great scholarship search tool. And then there's FastWeb as well, but I like MEFA Pathway, Big Future, and Going Merry. With Going Merry, you can apply to the scholarships right from the site, and I like that.
Great, I just shared it with everybody.
Oh, good.
So I know we're, closing in on 8:30, so if folks need to hop off, we are recording this. But I did want to just answer just a couple more quick questions. One, we have a lot of questions about expected family contributions and using the net price calculators. And I just wanted to reiterate to folks that the information you share on a net price calculator is confidential. So colleges don't know who are actually filling out those calculators. They're purely for you to do your research and to run numbers at an early stage before you actually apply for financial aid. So feel free to use those to calculate your expected family contribution. That would be a great thing to do. And then I think we're going to end it with one question that I've been saving till the end for Julie, because I know she's going to love this one. How helpful will a 529 college savings plan be for a student going into a senior year of high school?
Oh, so you mean just to start it now, senior year? Yep. Okay. Well, we love 529 plans. So we have all kinds of things to say about 529 plans, but one is never too early, never too late. So I would say that, yes, absolutely. One of the nice things about starting a 529 plan, even now, even though it won't have a huge amount of time to grow, is that once you open the 529 plan, and you can open it easily and with no money, it's something that you can also say to friends and relatives, maybe at graduation time, not little Johnny anymore, he's a senior, but what my son would love as a gift would be just a small contribution to his 529 plan, and people can easily add money, and there are gifting platforms to make it easy. So I would say it's just a good thing to have a 529 for your student. And then if you can save any money this year, do that, because I for my kids, I didn't even start as early as I probably should have, but then I just really tried to step it up at the end. And I'm thrilled for every penny I've saved and every penny that I didn't have to borrow or squeeze out of my monthly budget while they've been in school. So I would say go for it.
Awesome. We don't have any other questions, so I think we can wrap it up for the evening.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you for the questions. And you can see there, you can always stay in touch with us, call us, email us with small questions or large questions. And I wish you the best as you go through this whole process for you and your student. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you, Julie.